Matt Jones covers Arkansas athletics at Whole Hog Sports. Joining us here on Halftime. He's been heavy into baseball scrimmages over the weekend. I've seen him out there a few times. Matt, thanks for coming on today. What are you up to?
Well, Phil, I'm kind of in between. Just finished my podcast, but we just got our Hogs Illustrated baseball preview magazines in. I'm about to go drop those off over at the baseball offices. So this time of year is really fun for me because there is something going on, it feels like, at about every second of the day.
Yeah, it's a lot of anticipation too. I don't know about you. I think some listeners feel like this. It doesn't feel like the days are 24 hours long. It feels like they're 36 hours long. And 10 days right now feels like it could be more like 20 days away. But the team's a lot of fun to watch. And right now it stands out to me more than anything is that it's a team that should be pretty difficult to score on. And I think I spoke with Matt Hobbs about this. It feels like you could put together a professional style pitching rotation because there are like 5, 6, maybe even 7 options for starters on the weekends, which means there are some decisions to make potentially.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, really, I think there's 4 starter candidates realistically right now. Now, there could be others that develop into a candidate as the season goes on, but it's Gage Wood, Gabe Gackle, and I think Gabe is going to be the number 1 guy, and then you got Zach Root and Landon Vidalseas, the left-handers. I kind of get the sense, and I may be wrong about this, but it feels to me like it's Gabe and then Root and then either Wood or Vidalseas. And what's interesting about that is that Wood and Vidalseas are the 2 who I thought threw the best last week. Not to say the others threw poorly or anything, but they were both really efficient. Wood went through 4 innings and Vidalseas went through 3 1/3. They were all on pitch counts of 50 last week, and so to get through 4 innings on 50 pitches is a pretty good accomplishment, especially this time of year. For Gage, I thought he was probably, other than maybe Christian Fouts, most impressive pitcher that I saw, period, last week. And then, like I said, among the starters, he was the best. He looks like a different kind of pitcher than we've seen previously. And, he pitches to contact, and we've seen that work against him before in the past. We've seen him pitch to contact, and that contact will result in about 400-foot home runs. But it seems like he's keeping the ball down in the zone more. He is got more movement on his pitches. And he's just as confident as he's ever been. He's as strong as he's ever been. I was kind of joking with him the other day. He was pitching with his shirt tail tucked out. And I said, what was up with that? And he said, I think I need a bigger shirt. He's gotten so muscular that the shirts are just, he's about to rip out of him. Looks kind of like the Hulk. But I thought he looked really good. And I'll tell you what stood out to me just across the board pitching is that they're not walking a lot of batters. And you see a lot of walks this time of the year, or you can see a lot of walks, just because, it's the first time they've been facing live hitters in so long. But last weekend, I think they had 13 walks in 38 innings on the mound, and they had 39 strikeouts. And so those are really, really promising numbers, I think, at this time of year. They're filling up the strike zone. There's a player here and there who's struggling with command, but on the whole, and really from the pitchers who you expect to pitch in prominent roles early, they look real good.
I think, we went into last season expecting that pitching would be the number 1 aspect of the team. And at the end of the season, it turned out it was basically Hagen Smith and Christian Fouch, and McIntyre could give you a good performance every once in a while. Pitching just kind of fell apart a little bit at the end of the season. I'm seeing a team that's got more experience right now on the mound. Now, admittedly, some of the freshmen they have, Gibbler, Carson Wiggins, may have some of the most lightning arms on the team, but it's a team that's got more experience. But why, last year we expected starting pitching would be a big strength of the team with Brady Tigert, with Mason Molina, and it turned out that wasn't the case. Your best starter and really the only guy that you could really count on all throughout the season was Hagen Smith. So why going into this season should we feel differently?
Well, I don't know if you should feel any differently. It's all about staying healthy and staying healthy at, the positions where you need to stay healthy. Think about last year, the pitchers that they lost, to injury or guys who had injuries that were bugging them. I thought their starting pitching last year was really good through about the first 7-8 weeks of the season. Then it started to break down early April, somewhere around South Carolina, I think is a series that stands out to me, where you could start to kind of see some chinks in the armor. But Tigert had some injuries last year. Molina had injuries. Colin Fisher went out mid-April. Hunter Dietz was someone who was probably their best pitcher in the fall of 23, and they only got 2 outings out of him last year. And so when that happens, as you know, that might be 15 to 20 innings on a weekend that you expect those types of pitchers to give you, or maybe throughout the course of the week. And then you have to go start finding those innings from the back of the bullpen, and everybody just kind of has to, move up a spot or move up 2 or 3 spots. And so I think that's what happened to them at the end of last season. I think they were a very deep pitching staff. It's just they were kind of snake bit in that they got injured to some really quality pitchers and the pitchers who they expected to throw significant innings for them. So I think this year they've got a very deep pitching staff, just like I've felt the last couple of years. But, they've got to stay healthy in the, especially at the pitchers who they expect to pitch for them in prominent roles, guys like Beitelsees and Root and Gackle and Wood and Christian Fouts and Parker Coyle. If you look back at the end of the season and you say 3 or 4 of those 6 got hurt, then all of a sudden it's probably not, we're going to sound kind of dumb for saying that they've got a deep pitching staff. You got to stay healthy at the prominent spots.
So one of the pitchers that I think will be very interesting, and I think he fits into that role that you were brought up a moment ago, that maybe he's a starter as the season goes on, is Jimenez, coming from Oregon State. And I know he dealt with the UCL tear last year, and it seems to me that Aiden is a lot farther along than they expected when they got him to come to Arkansas. I think you'll see him for like an inning or so over the first 2 to 3 weekends, but this is someone who could have been the ace at Oregon State before his injury last year. You think of guys like Ben Bybee and Colin Fisher and Will McIntyre, 3 starters who've had experience starting not just in midweek, but on weekends as well in the SEC. So, that's what I'm talking about, that to me it feels like there's 5, 6, maybe even 7 options to start a game. But I think Jimenez is someone that we're not really talking about right now, but I bet you we're talking about him in May. Jimenez, I think he was a guy that was, you come here, you'll rehab, we'll get you ready for 2026, but I don't think that's the case right now. They're getting him ready for 2025 to be a weekend reliever to start, but slowly but surely as you build him up, that's someone that should be able to get 4 or 5 innings, maybe by April, and then maybe by May. You need a 4th starter. That's just a fact of this. You have to have 4 starters if you're going to go deep in June, because you never quite know, especially once you get to, if you have to play on a Monday in a regional, once you get to Omaha, you got to have, that's when you got to be at your deepest. And I do think there are 5, 6, maybe 7 that could think about starting. I just brought this up, Matt, about Aiden Jimenez. I don't think he's getting a lot of talk right now, but something tells me we'll be talking a lot about him in May.
Yeah, possibly. He was going to be probably the number 2 starter at Oregon State last year. Aiden May, who was really good for them, was a fairly high draft pick. He was the number 1 guy. He's the one who started opposite Hagen, and any other night he'd look great, but that night Hagen make anybody look bad. And but yeah, Jimenez, he's worked his way back from Tommy John faster than I think anybody expected. Kind of reminds me a little bit of what happened with Dylan Carter last year. So I think he's got a good heavy, what they would call a heavy kind of downhill tilt ball. And he's got some potential if he can get back to where he was at Oregon State before he had the Tommy John surgery last February.
Do we know Hunter Dietz's availability or his health, how he's doing?
Yes, we do. So Hunter has not pitched in any of the scrimmages, and I've had a lot of people ask me about him. His rehab in December, it was kind of on the same track as Jimenez and Colin Fisher. Now, they all were coming back from 3 different injuries, but it just so happened that their rehabs at that point in time had kind of, they'd kind of come together, and, they were all pitching off the mound around the same time, and they were all starting to throw to live hitters around the same time. And so for Dietz, his rehab, I think, is probably slowed just a little bit behind the other 2. Everybody I've talked to says that it's going fine with him. It's just he's not at the point in his rehab to where he's going to be throwing in these live scrimmages yet.
Very good. I know there's going to be a lot of position players that have a green light when they get on base. And one inning stood out to me. I think it was Saturday, where Souza and Justin Thomas both get on base in the same inning. Souza stole his way from first to third base on consecutive pitches and scored on a sac fly. Thomas stole second base, could have stolen third. In fact, you could tell he was angry at himself that he didn't take the opportunity because he had a huge break and just stayed at second base. I'm watching this team right now over the weekend, man, and I'm thinking this is a different approach. Dave's not, obviously he's recruited to the athleticism and the speed, and I can see, look, that was an inning where they just scratched out a run. I think without a base hit, they're going to use this speed. They are looking to steal bases. They are looking not just for the dirt ball reads, but to steal a base, take teams by surprise, and I think they have the personnel to do it.
I think they do too, and I'll tell you another thing that I think it helps is that it helps the young pitchers learn how to hold runners, how aggressive that they're being in these scrimmages. I don't know if this is the same inning that you're talking about or not, but there was an inning against Carson Wiggins over the weekend where Souza and Vahiva Aloy and Justin Thomas, or maybe over two innings, where they all got on, and the first pitch after they got on, they stole on Wiggins, and then Souza also stole third base. And, what you see from these young pitchers is that they don't know how to hold runners because in a lot of cases they have never really had to because their stuff was just so good in high school that nobody was getting on against them anyway. And so I think that that was an area that Matt Hobbs told me that he was disappointed in himself last year for not having the pitching staff be better holding runners late in the season. He said that a good pitching staff ought to be able to do that. And so I think it helps everybody. I think it's going to help Arkansas offensively, put runners into scoring position, and I think it's going to help these pitchers learn how to handle base runners because they are being very aggressive in these scrimmages.
So you can tell who are the starters right now because they've all been lined up in the same team each day on the weekends for these scrimmages. And right now, I don't think Kendall Diggs is one of the starters. They have him to first base or right field on the second level team. Logan Maxwell was getting a start in right field and I think at DH in another game. And I think he was DHing because there might have been just a little bit of a tweak, but I think he's mostly okay because he was able to run the bases and hit. That's who Matt Hobbs told me. Now, I stood in the dugout, asked him during the scrimmage, who's putting together the toughest at-bats? Who's the toughest hitter to get out right now? And without hesitation, he said Logan Maxwell. This is the transfer outfielder from TCU, 335 average last year, 3 homers. I think he's got more pop than just the 3 homers. I think he was dealing with something last year. But this is someone who's just a transfer coming in. I know a whole bunch of teams were after him. And it seems to me right now he's putting together the best plate appearances on a day-by-day basis.
Yeah, I think he's up there. And, he's dealing with two things right now. He actually banged into the outfield wall over the weekend, hurt his shoulder, and that kept him out of a scrimmage the next day. And then whenever he came back, he was a DH, and he kind of tweaked a hamstring. So he's dealing with both of those right now. But, when healthy, they think that he is a leadoff type hitter. I think Charles Davelin will probably start the season as their leadoff guy, and then, they might bury Maxwell somewhere down toward the bottom and, maybe try to do the double leadoff type deal. But, yeah, I think he's got a lot of potential. Diggs is really interesting to me because he was in the starting lineup the last couple of days in right field. And I think what happens with him, everything kind of hinges on where did they put Kendall Diggs. Do they put him in the starting lineup? If he's in right field, then that's going to, make a huge difference as to who's playing first base, and it's going to make a difference as to who's playing in left, and it's going to make a difference as to who was the DH. I see from Diggs that his swing, it seems like it's getting more comfortable every day. I think that you'll probably see him in the starting lineup. I'd maybe not, but I'd be surprised if you didn't see him in the starting lineup, at least at the beginning of the season.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football to NBA, college basketball to NHL and UFC, BetOnline is your number one sports betting source for the new year. From every touchdown to three-pointer and hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here.